Okay, welcome to the very first episode of Home Fermenter's Diaries. This episode is really being done because a friend of mine, whose name is Mark, is interested in learning how to make homemade cider using Mack's homebrew caps. I talked to him about it by email and he said he wanted to know more about it, so I told him I'll make you a video and then I'll send you the link to the video. So that's what this is. Mack's homebrew caps are caps that screw onto the top of a plastic bottle like a soft drink bottle and that allow carbon dioxide to escape if you're fermenting something inside the bottle. I'll show one of the caps close to the camera. As you can see, there's an aperture in the middle, and the aperture is designed to allow a bit of gas to escape when enough pressure forces it open. So the way it works is, of course, you could always ferment sugar inside a liquid beverage, inside any bottle, but as some people have found out to their disadvantage, if you cap the bottle and then allow yeast to ferment sugars inside of it, enough carbon dioxide is produced so that the bottle could explode. And that could be a problem. It is possible to make an explosion that could really hurt someone, but much more likely, much more frequently, what would happen is you'd get a big mess with the juice from inside the bottle ending up everywhere and you'd have to clean it up. So because the aperture exists in the cap, what happens is once enough pressure from gas on the inside of the bottle builds up, that aperture will open and it will allow some of the excess carbon dioxide to escape. And then the bottle won't explode. But it takes quite a bit of pressure to open the aperture, so what happens also is that not all of the carbon dioxide will escape, and therefore you'll end up with a carbonated beverage at the end. How much alcohol ends up being in the beverage depends on how much sugar you use and how long you ferment for. So this video is showing fermentation, or the beginning of fermentation of some apple juice. That's what I'm going to use. And the first thing that you have to do is sanitize your equipment, especially the bottle itself. So even though it had soft drink in it and nothing else before it was used for this, the bottle could have bacteria or something inside of it that would cause contamination. So I want to get rid of that, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by putting some hot water in the bottle. I'm using about half a liter of hot water, maybe closer to a liter. And then I'm going to put in some bleach and some vinegar. Now you don't add bleach directly to vinegar, that's in a reaction that's too powerful and could give off fumes that could harm a person. But I'm putting in just about a teaspoon of bleach into that hot water. And then I'm going to shake it. Doesn't take much, just to disperse the bleach within the hot water, and then I'm going to add the same amount, about a teaspoon of vinegar. This produces a sanitizing solution, which is a contact solution. It will kill anything that you need to kill on contact. So by shaking the bottle the way I'm doing right now, I am sanitizing the inside of the bottle and the inside of the bottle cap. And then the next thing I'm going to do, I need my funnel. Is I am going to sanitize my funnel. I'm going to do that by pouring some of the sanitizing solution through the funnel. Into a glass. Do that until the glass is full. And then I'm dumping the rest of the sanitizing solution. You don't have to rinse off this sanitizing solution. The bleach and the vinegar neutralize each other, and it's harmless. Then I'm putting the funnel in there so that it doesn't touch anything. And My glass has a knife in it. I'm going to use the knife later, so I want it sanitized. And I'm also dipping my fingers in it. It's no problem touching it with my fingers, and that means my fingers will also be sanitized. I'm going to pour a little bit of the sanitizing solution also across my cutting board. The cutting board now is also sanitized. The Mack's homebrew cap needs to be sanitized, so I'm putting it into that solution and pushing it down so that it's submerged. The next thing to do is to add some sugar to the bottle. I'm going to use about 3/4 of a cup of sugar for this 2-liter bottle. And I'm pouring that in through the funnel. Now the funnel is a little bit wet. That slows down the movement of the sugar through it, but I have a wide enough mouth funnel so that it'll go through anyway. After putting the sugar in, I put the juice in. This time I'm using apple juice. Because apple juice is fairly clear to start with, it should help to make for a clear cider at the end. And of course some of the sugar is stuck on the inside of the funnel, but pouring in the apple juice will wash that down into the bottle. Now you do not want to completely fill the bottle. You need to leave a couple of inches at the top space so that there's some room for the foaming action that'll happen when the yeast starts to ferment the sugars, so that it doesn't push through the aperture and make a mess. Because I'm doing a 2-liter bottle, I'm using almost 2 liters of juice. Okay, my knife touched the counter, so I put it back into the sanitizing solution, and it's sanitized again. So you can see how much space I left open at the top of the bottle. I don't need the funnel anymore, so I'll get rid of it. There's some leftover juice that will go into the fridge. Ready for the next glass of breakfast juice. I now have to mix the juice, the sugar into the juice. There's quite a bit of solid looking sugar near the bottom, but if I shake this up, it dissolves quite well. I find if you shake and then let it sit for a minute and then shake again, it completely dissolves. So there's not much left to do. One thing to do though is to add the yeast. The yeast comes with the Mack's homebrew caps, which you can buy from the website. So that a simple search will find those. And enough yeast comes to do this for a very long time, at least a year probably, even if you're doing it a lot, because you only need a little bit. The yeast are little tiny balls of yeast like yeast usually is, so I take about 25 or 30 of those and I dump them in. Finished with the yeast. Now the last thing I need is yeast nutrient. Now there's different ways of doing yeast nutrient. You can buy it in the store. Really all it is some trace chemicals like nitrogen and phosphorus that yeast need in order to be healthy, because they don't only use sugar. And what I did to make yeast nutrient though is I boiled 5 small raisins to sanitize the raisins, and I'm putting the raisins into the cider. Remember, everything's sanitized, the cutting board, I'm going to cut open one of the raisins with the knife so that the yeast can get into the pulp at the center of the raisin more easily. And I'm going to do one last shake. The shake is going to mix the yeast in well, and it's going to dissolve the remaining bit of sugar that has not dissolved. There is a little bit down there. All that's left to do now is to put on the homebrew cap. Screw it on nice and tight, and then put this somewhere in a dark place at room temperature for as many days as you want. I'm going to leave this to ferment for only 4 days because I've been doing them for 6 days and I'm finding that the resulting cider is too strong, and I don't like it very strong, so I'm going to try 4 days. And I also am experimenting to see how well I can get it to clarify. Right now this is fairly clear. I can sort of see through it. So we'll see. The next episode of the Home Fermenter's Diaries should be showing a tasting of this so that we can see how well it clarified and how well it tastes. Here's another one that I made last week. This was made with different juices. This is actually a strawberry banana juice mixed with a pineapple juice. And you can see there's a foam on the top, which is from the fermentation. So let's give it a taste. This was a thicker juice. It was opaque to start with, so it's not very clear. But it doesn't really look very different than the juice that I started. And the raisins that were in it, of course, they swell into grapes from being soaked in water for so long. And they actually are a nice little treat in your drink. They're crunchy because there's so much carbon dioxide on the inside of the grape that you actually feel it fizzing in your mouth as you bite down on it. Well, that one turned out pretty good. Not very sweet, but it has enough sweetness. As far as the alcohol content, I don't know. And I'm not going to find out by drinking a whole lot of it because I don't want to get drunk. So that's it. That's how you use Pat Mack's homebrew cups to make your homemade cider. Remember, be especially careful about things like mixing mixing vinegar and bleach together. This is not something you want to play around with. It's something to be careful about. And remember to put the Pat Mack's cap on at the top of the bottle at the end. Don't accidentally put the regular soft drink bottle cap, because then you will have what's called a bottle bomb.